Trespassing in a Child's Head Unwillingly by Kitty Cat on AO3. Chapter 26, Girls' Time. Izuku shifted between his feet, staring at the door in front of him. It should have been easy. He convinced himself it would be easy to talk to her. It always had been in the past. One thing wouldn't change that. But it wasn't just one thing. It was every time he asked about his dad and she said nothing. Every time he had talked about All Might on TV. She could have told him. Any time she could have talked to him. He would have understood. Wouldn't he have? Kachan's shoulder bumped him and he jumped. You sure you want me in there, Zuko? I know it's personal and... No, Izuku said, shaking his head. I need you there. I'll tell you anyway. I won't keep secrets, not from you. He leaned on his friend's shoulder, who snorted, pushing him off. Okay, he said with a shrug. Then let's go, huh? Straight in the door. He gestured to the door handle. Izuku hesitated, shaking his head. Sure, he was ready, but maybe not. Kachan opened the door, throwing it. You coming, coward? He asked, casting a glare over his shoulder. Izuku huffed but nodded, following behind. The door slammed behind them and he turned, jumping to look at it. Boys? His mom called from the living room, peeking her head around the corner. She carried a spray bottle with her, a handful of paper towels in the other. Let me finish up here and I can make you guys some snacks, okay? Izuku nodded. Okay, he whispered, his shaky voice trying to betray him. Luckily, she paid it no mind, going back to the living room. Fuck was that? Kachan asked, slapping his hand. Don't be chickening out now. Shh, Izuku said, holding a finger to his lips. I'm not chickening out. I'm not. I don't want to interrupt her. It needs to be the right time. Kachan snorted. The right time to ask her about your dad, who she swore was dead, but is actually the #1 hero, the symbol of peace, and your largest hyperfixation. Izuku glared at him and he shrugged. Give me your bag. I'm gonna put him away. Izuku reluctantly agreed, slipping it off his shoulders. His hand hit the keychain and he frowned, pausing. Hold on, he mumbled, ripping the All Might keychain off. He must have missed it in everything he had sold. Kachan said, looking at it before turning around and taking the bags with him. Izuku stared down at the keychain in his hand, frowning. It was worn down, the face almost completely rubbed off, and the limbs slightly gnawed on. It wouldn't sell for anything, but it had been a gift from his dad when he was really young, a man he couldn't remember. He shoved it in his pocket, ignoring the weight it added. Instead, he focused on getting some leftover pizza heated up. He watched the microwave turn, his eyes glazing over as the numbers ticked down. He was the son of a pro hero. The pro hero. Oh, his mom said, shocking him out of his thoughts right as the microwave beeped. Are you sure pizza is a good snack? You already ate my bento at school, right? She slid the cleaning supplies under the kitchen sink, turning on the water to wash her hands. Izuku shrugged, taking out the plate. I guess I'm still a bit hungry after last week's work studies, he mentioned, closing the microwave. The real reason was because he had thrown away his lunch in order to leave the cafeteria faster. All Might had walked in to talk to someone. He didn't wait around to see who. His mom nodded, drying off her hands as she yawned. He could see the bags under her eyes and the slight cracked concealer where she had tried to hide them. All her secrets just made him worry more. Why was that so hard to understand? Kachan appeared back in the kitchen, pouring himself a mug of milk. Izuku's lip curled up in disgust, but it was better than him chugging from the gallon. Hey, Auntie, he said, sliding the carton back in the fridge as he glanced over at her. When's the old hag going to be home? Don't call your mother that, Izuku's mom scolded, but the corner of her lip curled up. She'll be back late, hopefully when you two are already in bed. She raised an eyebrow and Izuku shrugged. Your father's staying at the warehouse, though. They have a show set for... Yeah, Kachan said, waving a hand in the air. Izuku's mom frowned, but didn't say anything else, just ruffling Kachan's hair. She turned back to Izuku with a smile, but he glanced away, setting the pizza on the counter. He suddenly wasn't hungry anymore. Mom, he whispered, hoping she didn't hear. But of course, his luck was never that good. What's up, sweetie? She asked, tipping her head. Need some help on any assignments, or... You went to UA, he said, without thinking about it. She paused, staring at him with a confused expression on her face. "Zuku," she whispered, but stopped when she saw his face. The silence was deafening until Kachan spoke up. "Okay, both of you. Living room. Now." Izuku stared at him, but he glared back. "We gotta fucking talk, and I'd much rather do it sitting down than awkwardly staring at each other over lukewarm pizza." Izuku glanced down at the pizza that was in fact no longer steaming. He left it though, following Kachan into the living room after he rinsed out his mug. He could feel his mom watching him, trying to search for something, but what it was, he didn't know. "Izuku," she said softly once they had all sat down, her on a single chair and him and Kachan on the couch. He shook his head. "Mama, I'm tired of lies and half-truths. I'm old enough to know the truth now, and I think it starts when you were in UA." She hesitated, shaking her head. "Nothing happened due to that, I promise. I was in support class. It's not like I did anything with it. You met my dad," Izuku whispered, and she jumped, staring at him. "Didn't you?" Kachan reached over, squeezing his hand tightly as the room fell into silence. When Izuku finally looked back up, his mom had tears in the corner of her eyes, her face deep set. The silence held a little longer before she coughed, sniffling slightly. "You know, don't you?" she whispered. "Who he is?" Izuku tried to answer, but his throat closed up on him. He hated seeing her cry. He could already feel his own tears starting up. He squeezed Kachan's hand instead. "Yeah," Kachan said, nodding. "We both know who he is. All Might." He didn't say the words with any trace of tears, but his hand tightened in Izuku's. He didn't cry. Her breath caught in her throat as she shook her head, dropping it into her hands. I'm so sorry," she whispered. I'm so sorry, Izuku, for all of it. If I had just... Izuku stood up and she froze, not moving from her hunched-over position. He collapsed beside her, grabbing her hands as he rested his forehead on her legs. Her body shook as she gripped his hands tightly, burying her face in his hair. Okay, Mama," he whispered, leaning into her warmth. No one spoke for a moment until he shifted, sitting up. His mom's face had tear tracks down it as she tried to wipe them away quickly. I'm tired of all the secrets. I want to know about him, about you. Didn't he... I know he died. I saw it. When the loud beep, the heart monitor stopped. He died. How did this... He shook his head, standing up to stretch his legs. She let go of his hands, frowning as she messed with her nails. He sat back down beside Kachan, leaning onto his friend who didn't speak. There's so much to say. Start from the beginning, Kachan said, tapping Izuku's hand. We'll listen. Izuku's mom nodded slightly, rubbing her eyes. That would be, I guess, my first year at UA. She looked at Izuku, who nodded. Well, I got into it as a general studies and later moved to the support after... She shook her head, rubbing her eyes. It's not really important. Izuku bit his cheek but didn't argue, not if he was finally getting some answers. Why didn't you say you went to UA? Kachan asked. I'm sure you could have gotten Izuku into the hero course. Hell, his dad's... Izuku gripped his hand tighter, and Kachan shut up. His mom shook her head. I didn't want him to be a hero, she whispered. The words tore through Izuku as he brought his legs up to shield himself. He knew, of course he had known. She had always apologized for his being quirkless, always apologized that he couldn't be a hero, but it was just him. Izuku, please, listen to me, his mom called, suddenly in front of him. That was in the past, before I could see just how strong you are, how smart you are. She took his hand that wasn't in Kachan's, squeezing it tightly. I don't believe that anymore. I know you will make an amazing hero if that's what you still want. He looked at her, his vision blurring with tears. If that's what he wanted. Was that still what he wanted? After finding out his father, a hero, had left them. That it was a life he couldn't have a family with. Close friends, the fear of death. When did you meet him? Izuku whispered, his throat threatening to close up again. She sighed, and Kachan scooted to the side. Izuku followed him as she sat on the other side of him. My second year was the first time, she whispered, raising Izuku's hand to kiss it gently. He had gotten into the hero course late and needed a costume. That wasn't my department. I made gear, not costumes. My friend came to me and said that she had a student she needed help with. His quirk wasn't working with him right, so I met him for the first time. She chuckled, shaking her head. He was awkward, constantly shifting between his feet. If he wasn't as muscular as he was, no one would think he was in the hero course. He didn't act like it. He was constantly apologizing for breaking each brace I made. Kachan scoffed slightly, and she paused. Sorry, he said, clearing his throat. It's just All Might apologizing. She rubbed her eyes, nodding. He wasn't All Might back then. He was Yagi. She dropped Izuku's hands, curling up on herself. We started dating in the 3rd year. In secret, of course. He kept rising in popularity, and I was right there beside him, fixing his gear. Izuku tried to say something, but it caught in his throat as he listened. The agency found out about me, but instead of dumping me like they told him, he married me, and we were happy for a time. She smiled as if remembering something. Her gaze drifted over to Izuku, and he fought the urge to turn away as she searched his face. He knew who she was trying to see now. All those half-glances he had brushed off over the years, the lingering stares. He couldn't say it wasn't true. If you loved him, why'd he leave us? Izuku whispered. Kachan's hand gripped him tighter. His mom let out a pained laugh, shaking her head. I'm sorry, Izuku. I really am. I thought it was over all this. It's been so long, and He took her hand again, and she kissed it gently. We were having issues before we found out. Small things. He'd leave without saying anything, or he'd come in late, bruised and beaten. He didn't like hospitals much. Izuku sighed. Before me? He asked, the words quiet. She hesitantly nodded. I'm still not even sure now. If he was happy that day, he never talked about it. She shook her head. He still cares for you, Kachan whispered, and her gaze moved to his. I hear him sometimes, promising he'll make it right to her. It's fucking creepy, his mumbling when we train. His mom's hand tightened on Izuku's. You fully train with him? She asked, staring at him with wide eyes. Kachan flinched. Yeah, he said, clearing his throat. They had agreed to keep which hero he was training with a secret. For a while now, Auntie. She nodded, sighing. I told him to stay away. From both of you. He doesn't listen. Never has since then. She scoffed, rubbing her eyes. Do you still love him? Izuku whispered. She jumped, staring at him before nodding slightly. I love Yagi Toshinori still, but not All Might. He was never who I loved, Izuku. Believe me. Her voice pinched in a way that sounded like pleading. He shook his head, squeezing her hand tightly. Every day, Izuku. Every day I see him in you. The innocence, the wonder of everything. That's something I have never seen from him in years. Izuku nodded slightly. It was fine. Why didn't he want me? I made him leave, he asked, his voice choking in his throat. She shook her hand, pulling him into her chest. Kachan dropped his hand as she buried her face in his shoulder. No, Izuku, she practically yelled. None of it was your fault. Ever. You are a miracle, and I need you to understand that. You were never the issue. Izuku nodded hesitantly, rubbing at his eyes as tears ran down his cheeks. He couldn't get the tears to stop. So why'd he leave? Kachan asked, and Izuku could swear his voice cracked. His mom hugged him tighter, pulling him into her lap. It was me. I made him leave. She tried to explain as Izuku pulled away just slightly. When you were born, he got busy. He had trips out of the country. She paused, shaking her head. When we got married, he moved to the U.S. to keep Japan's Hero Commission out of it. Something happened, didn't it? Kachan asked, leaning into Izuku. He jumped, leaning back onto his friend. It was an odd tangle between the two of them, but he wouldn't have it another way. They meant everything to him. His mom nodded, biting her cheek. When you were 1, I dropped you off with your daycare provider so I could go to work. I messed around in sales for a time. I got a call from the police. Her voice caught in her throat as she bent over herself, clutching her stomach. Izuku rubbed her back, hating the knot growing in his stomach. It's okay, Mama. We don't need to. No, she said, sitting back up as she rubbed at her face. I need you to know why I did it, so you don't blame yourself. She looked over to Izuku, her cheeks and eyes puffy and red. He hesitantly nodded. She had been killed. Someone, I can't remember what he called himself. He had learned about his father. He wanted to have blackmail. He took you, Izuku. Izuku's hands tightened as he stared at her, searching her face. Why hadn't he been told about this sooner? Why did she hide it when he asked, when the Vestiges started to talk about him being in danger? Mom, he whispered. What happened? She nodded. Your father found him. It took 2 days, and I couldn't sleep at all. I swore that the second I had you back, I would never let you go again. She choked slightly before rubbing at her collarbone and necklace. We moved back here, and I made him promise that I would never go through that again, ever, that you would be safe. Izuku went back to rubbing her circles on her back, biting his lip. And I am, Mama. I'm safe here now. No, she interrupted loudly. No, Izuku, you will never be safe. That's why I kept it from you. I couldn't. You're just a child. It happened again. He was followed, but She laughed, shaking her head. I pepper sprayed him. He tried to get to you in your room, and everything went red. I couldn't let someone hurt my baby. Not again. Not ever again. Izuku swallowed the lump in his throat as his hands tightened. He had already been grabbed once, but that was just a mugging. If it did get out, if All Might came back, would his mother be safe? Would Kachan? What happened? Kachan asked, bumping his head against Izuku's to shake him out of it. It worked, if only slightly. The police came. He came. I loved him. I loved him so much. But he would never cause you harm again. She took a deep breath, looking up at the ceiling. I told him I never wanted to see him again. This was his fault. It was all his fault. She shook her head. My husband was pronounced dead the next day. Izuku remembered that. He didn't think about it much, but he could recall the sound of the street below, the nurses rushing in and out, especially the sound of that long beep. He hadn't known what it meant back then. Izuku shook his head. She didn't need to know what had happened that day, what All Might had given him. Not now. They brought him back, she whispered, and we made a deal. I would raise you alone. I would move in with my friend. She looked to Kachan, taking his hand as well as she ran her thumb across it. Your mother. She promised to keep us safe, with no ties to him. Cameras, even though she didn't know why. Kachan nodded, swallowing. He would never see you again. He went back to America. I thought that was it, but now he's back, Kachan said, but he doesn't see Izuku. He doesn't talk to him. She shook her head. But he's too close. At that school, training you, it's not... She took a deep breath. But I know nothing will change either of your guys' minds, she whispered, moving to crouch in front of them. I need you both to promise me something. Izuku nodded along with Kachan. Anything, he whispered, wiping a tear from his mother's cheek. She smiled. You will keep each other safe, and no matter what, you will not let the other one get hurt. Don't tell anyone about this. Please. Izuku glanced over to Kachan, whose eyes were locked on the floor to the side. I promise, they managed to whisper at the same time. She chuckled, pulling them both off the couch and into a big hug. Oh, my boys, I'm so proud of you, both, she muttered, kissing them both on their heads. Daigoro yawned, rubbing his eyes. Class with Midnight had kicked his butt. The lady was somehow stricter than any of his hero teachers from when he was alive, and that was a hard thing to be. She took art very seriously, and what point did it really have? The kid didn't need to know any of that to be safe, and he certainly hadn't used it when he was a hero. He rubbed at his eyes as he trekked down the school stairs to head to the meeting place with Katsuki. Unfortunately, as he rubbed his eyes, the girl from Katsuki's class, the bubbling one, bounded right in front of him. He stumbled and grabbed her shoulders, moving her out of the way before he toppled her and himself. Holy crap, he muttered, laughing as he turned to look at her shocked face. Hey, Ochako. He said the name slowly, but she just smiled, so it must have been right. You are 5, right? She asked, looking down at his wrist. He nodded, and she somehow beamed brighter. Great, can you send 7 out? She tipped her head, and Daigoro raised an eyebrow. He chuckled slightly before shrugging. Yeah, sure. Don't see why not, short stuff. But I'd like to know why. Her face turned red as her smile dropped. I'm not that short. You're my height, she said, crossing her arms. He raised his hands, chuckling. Sorry. Force of habit. He wasn't going to explain how he was normally much taller than others. That might break her. She huffed but nodded. It's a surprise, she said, her grin coming back. She took Daigoro's arm and he followed, letting her lead him. Katsuki would still be in training for another 2 hours. The kid's homework could wait. He didn't like it much anyway. She plopped him down in a seat, grinning down at him. He raised an eyebrow. Oh, now? He asked, and she sighed and nodded. He laughed, shrugging. Okay, hold up. He pulled one leg onto the bench to support himself as he let himself fade back. Luckily, either Izuku or Nana had to be watching, because the switch was practically instant. Nana shook herself out of the fog, looking up into the grinning faces of Class 1A's girls, and what appeared to be 1B's girls as well. Whatever was planned, she wasn't sure if she would like it. Not with those smiles. Ashido pulled her up from the bench, laughing as Nana tried to get the band from her pocket. Yairozu seemed to spot her trouble, and she grabbed it as it fell from Nana's hands. Here, she said, offering the band as Ashido continued pulling Nana down the hall, flanked by the posse of girls. Nana nodded gratefully, using her mouth to pull the old one off and slip the new one on. Where are we going, girls? Nana asked, trying not to trip over the many, many feet in a tight circle. Someone started to say something, but Ashido quickly shushed them. She threw open a door and shoved Nana inside before the rest piled in. It was dark inside, and if it wasn't for the slight light creeping in from a curtained window, Nana wouldn't be able to make out any of the desks lined up in a circle. Well, she knew teenage girls. This was a sacrifice, and so help her, she would not be sacrificed to any demons today. I'm just gonna, she said slowly, stepping back, managing to weave between the girls who giggled loudly, until she hit a larger person. She frowned, looking up into Midnight's devilish smile. Her eyes seemed to glow purple, but before Nana could comment, she flicked on the lights. Did none of you actually talk to her? Midnight asked, sighing as she shut the door. Ashido told us not to, Sue pointed out, tipping her head. Midnight sighed, rubbing her eyes. I'll give you guys an extension on that homework, she whispered to Nana as she passed by her desk. You guys have an hour. I'm not missing my date tonight. She sat at her desk, pulling out a ridiculous amount of papers before slipping on headphones. Nana hesitated, looking around at the gaggle of girls. Am I safe? Yairozu laughed, nodding. Yes. Now come on, follow me. She took Nana's hand, far gentler than Ashido had been, sitting her at a table. What are we doing here again? A girl with orange hair asked. Kendo, from Class 1B, if she recalled Izuku's notes correctly. Hagakure shrugged, her shirt sleeves moving up. Why not? Us girls need to stick together, right? A black-haired girl nodded, grinning. So, what's the cute boy for? She asked, with a wiggle of her eyebrows. Nana groaned in disgust, and her gaze shot to hers with surprise. Sorry, she said quickly, raising her hands. Just, ew? I don't think you were informed, but I'm technically a 30-year-old woman, so, ew? She tried to clarify, but the surprise on the girl's face turned to pure confusion. Ashido laughed. Sorry, girlies. I totally meant to tell you about it, but I got distracted. The newer girl stared at her, and she raised her hands in defense. 7 here is one of Izuku's alters. She doesn't look like this. That's why. She grabbed a very large garbage bag from where it was hiding under a desk, dumping the contents onto it. Random floating hands appeared, casting a few items as they tumbled off the desk. Careful, the black girl scolded Ashido, the hands floating back to her with the objects. Makeup? Ashido nodded. Yep, we're going to give 7 a makeover. Make her look old, like Midnight. She giggled, messing with what looked like a fairly expensive black wig on top of the products. Excuse me? Midnight asked, and Ashido froze. Did you just call me old? Ashido looked at everyone who shrugged. Help, she mouthed to Nana, but she just grinned back. Ashido slowly turned to face Midnight. Hi, girl, she said, coughing slightly. I thought you had music on. Midnight raised an eyebrow, a paper held up as she had paused writing on it. I do. but you did just yell that. Ashido squeaked slightly, and Nana could have sworn the corner of Midnight's mouth quirked up. Do it again, and I'll grade your paper likewise. Ashido dropped the wig, bowing quickly. I'm so sorry. Please don't do that. I need a good grade. Midnight huffed. 55 minutes left, she said, returning to her work. Ashido sighed, turning back to them with a grin. Well now, let's turn this boy into a woman full of wisdom. Nana barely had a second to breathe before the girls pounced on the pile of makeup before attacking her face. A 7, Kendo said, leaning on a table. There were only so many girls who could fit around her at once. What's... Hagakure bopped her on the head. Don't talk. It messes up your cheek structure. I've never put makeup on a boy before. She hummed, biting her lip. Kendo laughed. So, how far does this alter thing go? Like, is it your quirk, or... Nana hesitated, looking up at Hagakure, who huffed and pulled her brush away. Yes and no, Nana tried to explain. The others seemed to perk up and listen. Technically, it would be considered a mix of a mental disorder and a quirk at this point. It started as just a mental, but it's basically filled the vacant quirk spot. She shrugged, and Kendo seemed to accept that. Sue was the next one to speak up. Does that mean you are, separate from Izuku? She hesitated, tipping her head side to side as she did Nana's nails. Do you, have another life you remember? How does that work? Nana hesitated before shaking her head. No, nothing like that. She smiled sheepishly, and luckily they moved on. Explaining she had a child who never knew his mother, would be far more difficult. They all talked as she watched them mingle, smiling at them. It was nice to be able to just be herself, even if it was among children. It was something she never had before. Too busy training to actually be a teenager. She was glad they seemed to have figured it out, despite their stresses. Oh, the black-haired one, Setsuna, said loudly. Definitely Bakugou. I mean, I know Todoroki's that pretty boy trope, but dude, have you seen Bakugou's thighs? She whistled, and Nana stared at her in surprise. She grinned. The brown-haired girl from 1B, Kimori, frowned. I think that quiet one, Ojiro. He's sweet. She practically whispered it. Ashido laughed. Nah, Setsuna's got a point. You ever seen Bakugou crush those big rocks with just his bare hands? She whistled. He can crush me with those. Nana let out a small choke in shock as she imagined Katsuki's expression upon hearing that. That got her attention as she whirled around from where she was talking to the rest of the girls. Oh, I forgot. You're close with Bakugou. You mock him and everything. Well, Nana paused as all eyes turned to her. A few had wicked grins. Yeah, I guess. I mean, Izuku and him lived together. She shrugged, and Mina's grin grew wider. Oh my god, she yelled, making people jump. He has the biggest plushie collection I've ever seen. And he's rich. His parents own that big name clothing brand, Bakugou Industries or something. It's Sako Industries. Mitsuki started it before she married Matsura, Nana clarified. Ashido nodded along. He's rich. So a fancy restaurant isn't out of his price range. Yaoyorozu nodded. My parents have done good business with them. Their clothes are of the finest quality. I can see why he'd be a good pick. Nana raised an eyebrow. No, absolutely not. Katsuki would drive any of you insane. Plus, I thought you were all going to be heroes. Relationships are hard to maintain as a hero. She had seen it time and time again. Ashido huffed. It's a hypothetical, 7. Plus, we're teenagers. Let us have stupid crushes. Nana shrugged, which seemed to pacify her. What about you, Ochako? You've been real quiet, and this is a very important matter. Ashido slid up next to the girl, who was very carefully applying decals to Nana's cheeks. She jumped slightly, and Nana caught her hand before she messed up what she was doing. Well, 7 is right? She asked, her voice really high-pitched. Ashido grinned, wiggling her eyebrows. I know who you find cute. She sung it, and the girl somehow got even more red at the accusation. Hush, she said loudly, throwing the pair of tweezers she was using for the smaller decals at Ashido. She laughed, dodging out of the way, as Uraraka patted her cheeks. Nana laughed along with the girls, joining in as their conversation moved between topics, though she very quickly got them off the topic of how to hide a body, which was a little concerning how many knew the proper ways to do it, and the plans they seemed to have made about it. Eventually, Midnight sighed. All right, girls, pack it up. I gotta get going. She stood up, tapping her papers against the table to keep them organized. Ashido pouted, but did as she was told, the other girls joining in. Nana yawned and went to rub at her eye, but Pony, as the other girls called her, grabbed her hands. No, makeup will get ruined, she stated in pretty broken Japanese. Nana groaned but nodded, and she dropped Nana's hand to go about picking brushes that had somehow ended up on top of a filing cabinet. So, can I get a mirror or something? Nana asked, afraid to search for one in the mess. Hagakure nodded, her hair bow moving with the motion as she grabbed one from under the pile. Here you go. Tell us what you think. Nana nodded her thanks, taking the mirror from Hagakure. She lifted it hesitantly, expecting an explosion of makeup and color on her face. Instead, though, it looked professional and well done. Sure, she could still see Izuku. You couldn't change someone's bone structure. But she couldn't see Izuku's freckles anymore or his small scars. Instead, she looked like she'd when she was a teenager. The black wig they had blended seamlessly onto her forehead, tied in a small braid over her shoulder. It was remarkable. Ashido clapped her hands, pulling her from the shock. So, we didn't do wrinkles or anything. I just kind of wanted you to feel more, I don't know. It's hard with Midoriya's face. She shrugged. Nana laughed, setting the mirror down. You did a great job. She glanced down at it before sighing. I really do appreciate it, but you mind if we dole back before I head out? I'm sharing the body with the others. She hummed. Well, yeah. Thank you guys so much, though, she said quickly. Ashido laughed. Yeah, no problem, babes. We just wanted to have some fun. She picked up the makeup remover wipes, grinning. Give me 5 minutes, Miss Kaima, she yelled back, pulling out the first wipe. Midnight groaned. I swear to God, Ashido, if I'm late to my date, you're not passing my class. Ashido waved her hand and started work on taking her makeup off. It only took her a bit of time before she set her 5th makeup wipe to the side, sighing. There we go, she declared, stepping back. The other girls had finished packing up, moving over while Ashido had been working. But all my work, Hagakure whined. Kendo shrugged. Yeah, but you have to admit, she doesn't look too bad in just eyeliner and blush. Really pushes the freckles. Nana laughed. It's not too much, right? Uraka nodded. Not at all. I think it looks kind of cute. Ashido saddled up beside her. Cute? She asked, her voice higher. Uraka smacked her on her shoulder. Hey, 7. Anyway, can you send Midoriya out? She asked, tipping her head. Nana thought for a moment before shaking her head. No, not right now. There's a lot of people around, and he's not a big people person. Uraka exhaled a breath before nodding. Out, Midnight yelled, clapping her hands. Everyone out of school, go home. Nana raised her hands in defense, quickly evacuating from the class as Midnight locked the door behind them. We'll send you our numbers, Class 1B's girls yelled out, heading the opposite way. The other girls split up fairly quickly, leaving Nana to lug the kid's backpack further up her shoulder. She followed the girls out, heading down a separate path to her meeting spot. Katsuki was already there waiting for her, and he glanced up from his book. He stared at her for a second before shrugging. You look dumb, he said, grabbing his bag. Now let's get going. Auntie's making dinner and she wants our help. Okay, so apparently I did have them give a makeover to, Nana, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think it's kind of needed after how heavy the first part is. By the way, I recorded that all in, like, one chunk, so it's, like, 18 minutes of just pure recording, which I'm not gonna edit, like, my pauses or anything, because that's a lot of work, and I really only edit the transition between when I pause my recordings and when I start them again, so that one's probably not gonna be edited, so there's probably a lot of pauses, but that's fine. Anyways, I don't know, I really do think I focus too much on Nana and having her be all feminine and everything, and, like, there's nothing wrong with being feminine, but I feel like I kind of took away from her being a hero, because, like, the others I constantly mentioned they were heroes, but with her I really haven't done it as much. The only thing I've done is saying it revolves around, you know, her kid and the fact she was a woman, and I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think of that. Anyways, I love Nana, but I think this is it to her. Also, in the notes of this one, I included that you guys know the bands on the wrist that, like, they constantly switch out. It's this. Oh no, wait, I already said this in one. Okay, well, it's the little silly bands, and I love them. that beginning. Okay, so like this really makes me want to write like an entire story, like a kind of a prequel on Inko and Toshinori and their relationship and everything, because it was so cute for a time, and then it just kind of went sour because, you know, Toshinori is a hero and it's not a really good line of work to have a family in. And here's the thing, they were together for a while, and you're like, oh well, how did the Vestiges not know about her? Before Izuku, they really try to stay out of it. Like, yeah, they could see around their heroes, but they really only did it in like fights and everything. When he was in his personal life, they kind of left him alone. But I love her, and she's so cute. She's such a good mom. And I think that's it. So I will see you guys in the next one, probably recorded tomorrow. I'm trying to record one a morning, but the next one is called New Faces, and its summary is Mall Trip.